Funding for Election 2016 coverage is made possible by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to helping people turn their goals and dreams into real possibilities and changing the way America defines aging. And by the members of Prairie Public.
Welcome to Prairie Public and AARP's continuing coverage of Election 2016. I'm Matt O'Lean. This is the debate for a spot on the North Dakota Public Service Commission. My guests today are Libertarian Thomas Scotland, Republican Julie Fedorchak, and the current seat, who has the current seat on the commission, and Democrat Marlo Hunt Bobrin. There'll be 1 minute opening and closing statements with debate in between. Going first on the opening statement is Thomas Scotland.
All right, first off, thanks Prairie Public Radio for hosting the debate. I got involved in this campaign for basically one reason, and that is to ask fundamental questions about the role of government, including that of the Public Service Commission. After extensive review, I've come to what I consider as a rational and logical conclusion that the PSC is inherently inefficient and unethical. It attempts to guide market processes according to its idea of a planned economic order. Economic law opposes this claim. The PSC restricts the natural rights of North Dakota citizens' ability to own and control property, engage in voluntary exchange, and establish contracts. It does this through restricted land development, price controls, licensure law, government-granted monopolies, and other unjust rules and regulations. It is my belief that the PSC can and should be abolished and handled through pure free market processes and controlled by private sector participants. I think this would be a more efficient system and more ethical as well.
Okay, Julie Fedorchak, 1 minute opening statement.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Prairie Public and AARP, for hosting this debate. It's a wonderful opportunity for citizens to learn more about the issues and the candidates behind them. I've been on the Commission for 4 years. I bring a common sense approach to regulatory policy that advocates for a strong, firm, and predictable regulatory approach. I have had 3 main priorities: improving rail safety, improving reclamation, and ensuring that electric rates are affordable and reliable in North Dakota. I'm seeking re-election to continue providing this balanced approach that allows for orderly development of our energy resources, while also protecting the environment and our cultural resources and maintaining the quality of life that North Dakotans appreciate. Thank you.
And finally, 1 minute opening statement from Marlo Hunt Bobrin.
Good evening. My name is Marlo Hunt Bobrin, and I am thankful today to be invited here. Thank you to AARP and to Prairie Public Television for hosting this event and allowing us to have debate over important issues that concern all North Dakotans. I am running for office because I feel like it's time that we bring some diversity to the Commission. I'm all about communication, cooperation, and collaboration. So I would like to have a seat at this table so that I can bring those to North Dakota.
Okay, let's get right to the big issue right now in North Dakota, and that, of course, is the Dakota Access Pipeline and the ensuing protests down near Cannonball. Let's first try to get the facts straight and what exactly, Julie Fedorchak, you're going to start us off on this issue, what exactly the permitting process was with this pipeline. Were meeting notices given? Did the state and PSC notify the tribes and reach out for preliminary meetings? So Julie Fedorchak, why don't you start off on this?
Sure, thank you for that question. It is a topic of concern and a lot of discussion right now in North Dakota. This was a 14-month process. It started with an application from the company to the Public Service Commission that basically went through the requirements that we have for applying for this type of a permit. Our staff reviewed that application, deemed it complete. We scheduled 3 public meetings along various locations along the pipeline route. One was in Mandan, one was in Killdeer, and one was in Williston. Those public meetings were noticed widely and broadly through our traditional listings and direct mailings to various agencies, including the North Dakota Indian Affairs Commission, who directly invites the tribes as appropriate, and did make a personal invitation to the Standing Rock tribe to our hearings on this process and encourage them to participate. We held those public meetings. We had hundreds of participants, took lots of comments during the hearing process, and incorporated a lot of those concerns in our ultimate permitting process. Much of the concerns on this line, not surprisingly, were related to reclamation and landowners who wanted to make sure that their land was going to be properly cared for. What's interesting about this project is and noteworthy and not often discussed or known in the media, all of the pipeline easements for this project were provided voluntarily. There was no eminent domain used in North Dakota for the permitting of this project. There's a lot of environmental restrictions on this project. It will traverse the Lakes Kakawea and Lake Oahe, both, and other rivers. There are block valves on both sides of each river crossing, and the pipeline is monitored 24/7, 365 days a year from a site in Texas, and that site has the ability to shut down the pipeline operation of those block valves at any time. So bottom line, it was a very thorough process. It was very open and transparent. I'm a huge believer in public input. Work hard to get public awareness about our hearings and involvement in them. And in the end, we provided the pipeline permit when we were assured that the company had met all the requirements under state law for the permit.
Okay, response, Marlo Hunt-Boelbrink.
I disagree with the whole process when it comes to permits, only because I feel like there's 5 tribes in North Dakota and there isn't one seat on this commission to have the tribes be heard. I believe that there was outreach to the city people in Bismarck when the pipeline was going to go north of Bismarck, and I don't feel that that was extended when it was moved down the line. And I think at the end of the day, after all the issues, there needs to be our leaders are being called upon to sit down and communicate and come to a peaceable resolution when it comes to all of this. And, you know, when it comes to the permitting, I just think that we need to be a bigger part of the process from the beginning to the end. Hence my running for office, because I feel like if I'm gonna be able to have an opinion, then I should be able to run.
Okay, Thomas Scotland, response?
Sure. Excuse me. I think the process of the pipeline production is kind of irrelevant when considering the individual liberty implications. I'm opposed to the pipeline because the individual property rights of all individuals involved have not been respected. In Iowa, landowners have had their land confiscated illegitimately and unjustly through eminent domain. More concerning to North Dakota citizens, though, should be that the 3 major companies involved in the production of the pipeline and construction have received over $2 billion in government subsidies over the years. I think this is an illegitimate source of production financing and a burden on the taxpayers. So I think a more free market approach to how a pipeline could be produced is a more appropriate answer to how this pipeline should go through.
Okay, back to Julie now. So I'm hearing conflicting, and we hear this a lot. Why, if notice was given, why did no one from Standing Rock get back to the PSC, or did they? Or, and I'm sure Marlo will want to respond to that, but go again, Julie Fedorchak.
Sure, absolutely. I can't speak to why the tribe didn't get back to us, but I can tell you that they didn't, and it's very regretful. The first I heard about the tribe's concerns was several weeks after we approved the permit, and even at that point I offered in my discussion with Scott Davis, Scott, I'd be happy to go down to the tribes and meet with them if they want to. Let me know. And again, no invitation, no further discussion there. So I agree with Marlo that, you know, we've got to have that interaction and that dialogue. It's vital. We reached out. Nobody responded. Nobody let us know that there was an issue. So quite honestly, until I know there's issues, I can't arrange for meetings, etc., to address those concerns. So it's a vital infrastructure project. It's really important for the industry that it serves and for the citizens in our country. Pipelines are the safest, most environmentally sound way to transport this product, and they're far preferable to rail transport and truck transport. And whether everyone wants to agree with it or not, right now we are dependent on fossil fuels for our electricity, for a lot of our energy needs in this country, and so we have to have the safest, most environmentally sound infrastructure to transport those products.
Okay, Marlo Hunt-Bobrin, response?
I think that on both sides of the coin there are preventative measures that could have been done. However, I do believe that instead of the us against them and pointing fingers, that we need to have, again, hold our leaders accountable to sit down and figure things out and come to a peaceable agreement, because at the end of the day, we're all being reactive to something that's already in place. And hence, again, my running, because, you know, we got to break down that barrier. We have to start learning to work together, because we all reside in the state and we're all North Dakotans, and that's the only way we're going to see ourselves move forward into the future, is if we have the collaboration, cooperation, and the communication to do that. So that's...
Okay, last word on this one, Thomas Scotland.
Sure. When I say I want to see a free market approach to how this pipeline would be produced, I'd like to think of the railroad industry in the late 1800s, when there were 3 major railroad companies that received heavy government subsidies. They were completely inefficient. They went bankrupt. They're complete failures, even after receiving an unfair advantage over their competitors with these heavy government subsidies. But there was one railroad, the Great Northern, owned and controlled by James J. Hill, who was completely privately funded. He went through voluntary exchange and contracts with the landowners where his route went. He was on private land, public land, and also Native American territory, and his railroad was the most successful, even though he was completely privately funded and went through these voluntary contracts. I think a pipeline could be built in the same manner. In this way, this is how the free market provides efficient goods and services, and I think the pipeline should be done so as well.
Okay, let's move on to the second issue, which is sort of a follow-up to this. And Marlo, you will start us off on this one. So as a follow-up, where does it go now? The Justice Department has stepped in and asked for kind of a pause. How will this impact future pipelines? And Attorney General Stenjum has now said that Dakota Access has 30 days, I believe, to explain the most recent purchase of land, which was a couple of weeks ago. So Marlo, you start us out on this one.
I have to say again, we need to back up, and, you know, instead of playing all these games, we need to have our leaders come together. I believe that once we come together and we come to a solution, we get everything out on the table, that things can be worked out. And yes, it's going to be a compromise on both sides, but this is how we move forward. This is how we progress, is when we sit down and communicate and figure things out. And I believe, again, a lot of the aftermath is reaction to what's already happened. So instead of being reactive, let's pull back, put our big boy pants on, communicate, and be proactive from here on out. I also believe that without a seat at this table, when the rules and regulations are put in place and our input is not on the commission right now, it's hard to say, you know, someone else is going to make decisions for us. Hence, we need to get involved in our politics and run for public office.
Okay, Thomas Scotland, response?
I guess I'm kind of glad to see that some of the production was halted now, just to settle the issue, kind of figure things out, and to settle the dispute over the conflict over land use and the pipeline. But I guess, like Marlo said, it's going to take a joint effort on all sides, all aisles of the party and of the issue to settle the dispute. I guess I'm just hoping that it is settled soon and can be done so civilly.
Okay, Julie, last word on this, and then we're going to move on to other energy issues.
Okay. I think there's really 2 issues here. One is, how's this issue going to be settled, and then how we're going to deal with this moving forward in future applications. So there's this pipeline. I think it'll be settled either by a regulatory decision at the higher federal levels involving the Corps, the Justice Department, and those agencies and the Obama administration. They'll either settle it or it'll be settled out in the courts. And it's going to be one of those 2 ways. Separate from that, however, is how we're going to deal with this moving forward. I'm all in favor of finding ways to improve the process so that there can be more collaboration with the tribes, with the sovereign nations on all infrastructure projects, and finding a way to do that in a respectful, meaningful way. That's vital. I do not think that it's fair to hold those new standards on top of this existing project that went through the process on what standards existed at that time. So my hope is that they can resolve this issue, find a way to resolve this issue on the current existing project, which is 60% in the ground in North Dakota today, and then develop a more productive process for all future projects.
Okay, next issue, Thomas Scotland, you're going to start us off on this one. Let's talk North Dakota's energy and oil industry. Some have alleged the PSC and the state have been a little too cozy with some oil companies and energy companies, and now we see North Dakota's economy struggling, and we've had some across-the-board budget cuts. Is the economy too dependent on energy right now, and is a more critical evaluation of companies needed or not? Thomas?
Oh, I see this issue as being settled through a natural market process. First of all, no individual or commission is going to be able to determine the most successful or efficient energy industry. This can only be done through open market competition. The reason the free market is superior to that of central economic planning, which the PSC inherently does, is because in a natural market setting, there is voluntary exchange, and these voluntary exchanges establish natural market prices. These natural market prices lead to appropriate and accurate economic calculation. If this process is distorted, there's going to be disruptions in that process. There's going to be misallocation of resources, including land, labor, and capital, but also malinvestments. And I think we're seeing that with regards to how regulation is involved in this production in these areas. There's going to be malinvestment and misallocation of these resources. So I'd like to see a more free market approach to energy production in North Dakota. I think that would be a more efficient way of determining who's going to be the most successful and most efficient.
Okay, response, Julie Fedorchak.
Sure, I agree with Thomas on the support of the free market. I mean, the free market is a powerful, it's one of the most powerful aspects of America. And we at the Commission really don't get in the business of picking winners and losers. We review permits and provide permits for companies that come forward with projects that they want to pursue, and they have to meet certain legal guidelines for getting that permit to develop those in North Dakota. And when they meet the requirements, they receive the permit. We do provide some regulatory oversight on the natural monopolies, the utilities, which we can discuss in more detail in later questions. But otherwise, the free market is driving our economy in North Dakota, and it will find its way. I have a lot of confidence that the businesses involved in our state will find their way. They'll become more innovative, they'll become more efficient, they'll find new opportunities, and we have incredible resources in North Dakota, energy resources and people resources and education resources that are going to help us get through this downturn, and we'll find new ways, new ideas, new innovations, new businesses that are going to drive our economy forward.
Okay, Marlo Hunt-Bolbrin, response?
I have to agree with both the candidates in that I believe in free market. However, culturally and historically, I do believe in lessening our carbon footprint. I also believe in respecting the land and the water and the natural resources that we have. And so I think looking to the future, we have to look at becoming less dependent on that industry, only because we want to be able to be proud to give our children and our unborn grandchildren something beautiful in which we've all lived in all of our lives. And if we keep driving forward without respect to those things, we won't have much to give.
Julie Fedorchak mentioned dealing with monopolies, so let's have a 30-second response on that. Thomas Scotland.
Well, I think it's a common myth that natural monopolies are a real thing. An important author that I've read a lot of is Thomas DiLorenzo. He's written a book on and extensive articles on the myth of natural monopolies. That's not true. In free market settings, there's no way for monopoly to come about, because there's always competing firms trying to establish the most efficient systems, trying to compete for that consumer demand. But also it is, or more importantly, it is the government interventionism and government regulation that actually encourages these monopolies and allows these monopolies to come about, because in a regulated economy, certain businesses are allowed to cover these costs, or whereas their competitors are not allowed to meet those costs. So regulation actually benefits big businesses and hurts the small businesses.
Okay, Julie Fedorchak, 30 seconds.
Well, just from a real pragmatic standpoint, running and developing a utility requires incredible investments of capital, and it's been proven over time in many states, not just North Dakota, that those investments of capital are probably not something that more than one company is going to do if they have to, especially in a rural area where you have to split off your customers between a wide variety of competitors. So there's just the infrastructure investments are burdensome and at a level that there's not going to be a lot of natural competition. So that's where the regulated monopoly comes in, where the PSC in this case provides the substitute for competition, making sure that the monopoly, in the case of a utility, doesn't take advantage of the customers and charge exorbitant prices.
Okay, final response, Marlo?
I agree with both candidates. I think that the less monopolies we can hold off in North Dakota, the better off we are, because everybody deserves a fair chance. And whether we can't do that on our own, which I think we can, or whether we have to have a commission that oversees and ensures that, either way, it needs to be fair for every North Dakotan.
Okay, final question comes from our co-sponsor AARP. What measures will you support to make sure utility customers have a voice in cases about their utility rates and other proceedings related to their utility service? Will you support funding for an independent consumer advocate to represent residential customers? Julie Fedorchak.
That's a question near and dear to my heart. One of the things I've brought to the Commission is an extra focus on outreach and trying to get more public involvement in our processes. When it comes to the utility rate setting process, we do a lot of noticing to the public. We talk about rate cases. We'll probably be having another rate case coming up for MDU here shortly. And the public is welcome to attend all of our meetings, and they can intervene, or they can even just speak out at the meetings, however they so choose. In terms of supporting a public, a third-party intervener, I forget how did you describe it, Matt?
Independent consumer advocate. An
independent consumer advocate. I'd have to know a lot more about how that would be paid, if the company would be paying for it, who would be paying for it, and how would it evolve. It's not something I would dismiss offhand, but I'd have to know a lot more about the details of something like that.
Okay, Marlo, response?
I also feel like engaging the public and having that open dialogue with people is always best, because again, communication is the key to moving forward. And I believe that with everybody's involvement and notification to the public, that it would be optimal to have the people represent themselves and not to have a third party.
Okay, final response, Thomas Scotland.
So it's tough. I'm not completely familiar with the issue, the question or the issue, but just part of my campaign has been to ask fundamental questions about the role of government, including that of PSC, and I'm trying to think of alternatives for government regulation and then PSC regulation. I think the less involvement of the PSC in the business affairs of North Dakota citizens, the better. So I think part of the question meant that like private
consumer advocate,
consumer
independent.
I'd be all in support of that. The more free market approach to solving issues, the better. So I think that's something I could be behind.
Okay, we need to move to closing statements. It goes very fast. Marlo Hunt-Bohlbrunn.
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me and allowing me to express myself, as well as the other candidates. I'm very honored to meet both of the candidates, and thankful. I think it's time, North Dakota, that we create some change and some collaboration, communication, cooperation. That's what I stand for. So thank you for having me, and thank you, candidates, for being here today. Okay, 1 minute close. Thomas Scotland.
Again, thanks, Prairie Public Radio, for hosting the debate. I'm glad to be part of the conversation. It's tough for us to get our points across in the short amount of time we've had, so I encourage the listeners and viewers to check out all of our websites and compare content. I've written extensively about my positions, and I encourage you to read what I've written. lpnorthdakota.org. Thanks again.
And Julie Fedorchak, 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Marlo. And thank you, North Dakota citizens, for allowing me to serve you for the last 4 years. I've brought a common sense approach to the Public Service Commission. I believe in regulatory approach that is fair, predictable, and clear. And I have focused on 3 priorities in the last couple of years: rail safety, pipeline reclamation, and affordable utility rates for citizens. We've made a lot of progress in those areas. I'm looking for your support for a 6-year term so that I can continue to focus on those priorities and continue to provide a balanced approach to orderly development of our energy resources that allows us to maximize these resources while also minimizing the impact on our environment and our cultural resources and maintaining the quality of life in North Dakota. Thank you.
And you guys actually didn't use up your time, so we have like 20 more seconds. Marlo, if you have anything more you'd like to say.
I just want to say thank you to the North Dakotans for having our debate here, and again, check out our websites and look us up. I'm so honored to be here today. Thank you.
Thomas?
Sure. My ideas and positions may seem radical to some people, but that is because they are radically principled. In the Libertarian Foundation of the ideas of self-ownership and the non-aggression principle, I encourage people to check into those ideas as well. Thanks again.
Julie, you have 30 more seconds if you want to use it.
Absolutely. Well, I've enjoyed my time on the commission. I've learned a lot. I feel like I have the experience and the background to do a good job on behalf of North Dakota citizens, and I would appreciate your vote.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all my guests today, Thomas Scodlin, Julie Fedorchak, Marlo Hunt-Bobrun, and thank you for watching Prairie Public and AARP of North Dakota's continuing coverage of Election 2016. Watch all of our debates that we have 6 this time, and Election Day is November 8th. So long.
Funding for Election 2016 coverage is made possible by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to helping people turn their goals and dreams into real possibilities and changing the way America defines aging. And by the members of Prairie Public.